bird has a unique song, and actually each individual will have a slightly different song than each of the other birds in its species. And most birds have two different voices, you can call them. One being the song, which would be a thick, melodious, sometimes continuous, long voice. And the other being call note, which could just be a random chip or chack or just some random note. But in the instance of this blue jay up here, its call note is more like its song because it doesn't really have another song. So voice and song is very individualistic between species, which is also another reason why it's so hard to identify just by sound alone. However, as you hear birds off more and more, like this killdeer, where it actually says its own name in flight, as you begin to hear that over and over, you begin to recognize it, and that's how you gradually learn bird song. Now we get to the variations. Each bird may have a slightly different stripe pattern or a different shade of red or whatever. But there are also variations in which it can be considered like an actual, not really disease, but kind of like that. There's albinism, in which the bird will be completely white and will have pink feet and a pink bill or beak. There's leucism, which is seen in this female mallard, which is also called partial albino, even though that's not a correct term. There are two different kinds of leucism, pale and pied. Pale would be what this mallard has, where it's kind of blended, just two different colors that kind of go with each other. Well, pied would be this blotchy, outstanding random color. Like if it was on this mallard, there might be a random patch of yellow somewhere sticking out, and that would be pied leucism. There's also xanthochromosm, which would be a difference in pigmentation that affects the red pigmentation. So, as in this house finch, it may be red, it could be orange or yellow. And it will be different shades of these colors, just depending on how much red pigmentation it has. And then there's melanism, which is pretty much the opposite of leucism and albinism. It's when they have more melanin in their pigments, and they will get darker. So a mourning dove, instead of being the light tan color that it is, could be very dark brown, which is unnatural for it. Then there's deformed beaks and bills, which is one of the few deadly diseases of this kind, because if a bird's beak is overgrown or split, in which the bottom and top will not meet, the split would be, it could get dehydrated faster because it's not closed, and they deformed, where it would be like overgrown, prevents it from eating and therefore can result in death. So most birds that have deformed bills will probably end up dying. Then there's bald birds, which surprisingly isn't deadly at all. It just happens, like in this cardinal where it has no head feathers. And in some cases, the bird will actually like molt through, lose all their head feathers, gain them back, lose them again, and then grow them back again. Which is in the case of this cardinal, which we have hanging around our house, because it's shown up multiple times, sometimes with no feathers on its head, and then in a different season, we'll have a bunch of different males, but all of them have their head feathers. So that kind of leads me to assume that it's actually molting without its feathers in its head. Nobody really knows why this happens, it just kind of does. So that leads us to the common birds of our area. I have divided them up into three different sections, one being yard birds, which are birds that will come to feeders or in the general yard vicinity. So birds like cedar waxwings and sharp-shinned hawks, which are nicknamed sharpies, they will actually eat off of berries and, in the hawk's case, other birds, and they will not usually come to the feeders, depending on what you put out. So if you put out raisins, you might be able to attract waxwings to your feeders. However, I tried this once and all I attracted was ants, so it doesn't always work. And then also different birds will prefer different seeds and types of feeders. Up here I have a hopper feeder, which is basically a little platform with a roof on top. And inside of my hopper feeder, I have black-oiled sunflower seeds, and birds love black-oiled sunflower seeds. If you have to pick between one type of seed they have to use, I highly recommend black-oiled sunflower. Because many birds, especially cardinals, will come and eat the black-oiled sunflower.